The greatest lie you'll ever believe is that you are who you think you are, not because your name is false, or your memories are useless, or your personality means nothing. No, it's more subtle than that, much more dangerous. The lie works because it borrows pieces of truth. It takes your history, your pain, your habits, your opinions, your role in the family, your job, your fears, your taste in music, your little wounds from childhood, your favorite ways to protect yourself, and then it wraps them all together and whispers, "There, that's you." And because you've heard that voice for so long, you stop questioning it. You wake up in the morning and step back into the same character, same reactions, same emotional weather, same invisible script. Maybe you're the strong one. Maybe you're the misunderstood one. Maybe you're the one who always has to prove something. Maybe you're the quiet one who learned early that being too much made people uncomfortable. Whatever the role is, it feels familiar, almost safe, like an old coat you keep wearing even though it doesn't fit anymore. Ancient words once carved into stone said, "Know thyself." Simple, right? Almost too simple. But there's a reason those words survived, because most people don't know themselves. They know their mask. They know the version of themselves that learned how to survive. They know the face they show when they want love, approval, respect, protection, or control. But beneath that face, beneath the story, beneath the name and the carefully edited identity, there is something deeper trying to breathe. And at some point in life, usually when the old mask starts cracking, you begin to feel it. You didn't create your identity all at once. Nobody does. It was built slowly, like a house assembled by people who never asked what kind of home your soul actually wanted to live in. Parents placed a few bricks there. Teachers added a few more. Friends painted certain rooms with praise or shame. Society handed you blueprints before you even knew what a blueprint was. Be successful, be attractive, be normal, be useful, be impressive, don't be too emotional, don't be too strange, don't ask questions that make the room uncomfortable. Little by little, your mind learned what was acceptable. It learned which parts of you got rewarded and which parts got punished. Smile here, hide that, speak softer, perform better. Don't admit you're jealous, don't admit you're angry, don't admit you want something strange, something wild, something nobody around you understands. Eventually, your conscious identity became less like a mirror and more like a resume, a polished summary, a public version, clean enough to be accepted but not deep enough to be true. At the center of that public version sits the little storyteller inside you. Call it the part of the mind that says, "I am this kind of person." It works hard. Honestly, it's trying to help. It gives your life continuity. It lets you wake up and feel like the same person you were yesterday. Without it, daily life would be chaos. But here's where the trouble begins. The storyteller doesn't tell the whole story. It edits, it cuts scenes, it hides embarrassing chapters in the basement. It keeps the parts that make sense and pushes away the parts that threaten the image. So when you say, "That's just who I am," be careful. Sometimes that sentence is wisdom. Other times it's a prison sentence spoken with confidence. You may not be naturally cold. You may have learned to freeze because warmth once cost too much. You may not be lazy. You may be carrying fear that disguises itself as exhaustion. You may not be arrogant. You may be protecting a hidden place that feels painfully small. Identity can become a mask so convincing that even the one wearing it forgets there's a face underneath. Imagine your mind as a house. The upstairs rooms are bright, organized, and presentable. That's where you bring visitors. That's where you keep the furniture polished. That's where you say, "Look, this is who I am." But every house has locked rooms. Every house has drawers nobody opens. Every house has a basement where forgotten things gather dust. Your identity lives mostly upstairs. Your truth does not. Beneath your ordinary awareness sits a deeper layer filled with memories, emotions, desires, fears, and old versions of you that never disappeared. They only went quiet. A feeling you didn't know how to process at 10 years old may still be shaping how you love at 30. A humiliation you buried long ago may still decide how loudly you speak in a room. A desire you were told was unacceptable may still whisper through your restlessness. Nothing inside you vanishes just because you refuse to look at it. The psyche doesn't throw things away, it stores them. Even deeper than your personal basement, there's something older moving through you. You carry patterns that are bigger than your private life. The human being has been afraid, ambitious, loving, cruel, heroic, jealous, faithful, deceptive, creative, and searching for meaning for thousands upon thousands of years. Those ancient patterns didn't disappear when modern life arrived. They simply changed clothes. Old myths now wear business suits. Ancient fears now live behind phone screens. The hero, the orphan, the lover, the tyrant, the healer, the trickster, they still move through people every day. Maybe that's why certain stories feel familiar, even when you've never lived them. Maybe that's why a symbol, a dream, a movie scene, or a random sentence can hit you so deeply that you don't just understand it, you recognize it. Something in you says, yes, I know this, not because you learned it from a textbook, but because some part of the human story already lives inside you. Your identity is not just personal, it's also ancient. You are not only the person you've been trained to be, you are a meeting place for forces, memories, instincts, and possibilities far older than your name. Of all the hidden rooms inside you, one is guarded more fiercely than the rest. That room holds everything you don't want to admit you are. Not just your trauma, not just your pain, also your envy, your resentment, your need for control, your capacity to manipulate, your secret hunger for attention, your bitterness, your weakness, your strange desires, your unspoken anger, the parts of you that don't match the identity you've worked so hard to maintain. People like to imagine the dark side as something belonging to others. Bad people over there, selfish people over there, cruel people over there. But life has a humbling way of showing you that whatever you condemn with too much heat may also exist somewhere inside you. Maybe not in the same form, maybe not in the same degree, but the seed is there, and that's uncomfortable. Nobody wants to look in the mirror and see the thing they've spent years judging. Yet avoiding that room doesn't make it disappear. A shadow doesn't stop following you because you refuse to turn around. In fact, the more you deny it, the more power it gains from the dark. Repressed anger becomes passive aggression. Hidden insecurity becomes pride. Buried shame becomes judgment. Unacknowledged desire becomes obsession. The mind is funny like that. What you refuse to meet directly often finds a side door. Real growth begins when you stop trying to be innocent in your own eyes. Not guilty, not condemned, just honest. There's a difference. Honesty doesn't mean hating yourself for having a shadow. It means finally becoming mature enough to say, yes, that too belongs to me. Strange thing is, the moment you stop running from the darker material inside you, it starts losing its grip. Not because it magically disappears, but because awareness gives you choice. You can't heal what you keep pretending isn't wounded. You can't guide what you keep pretending isn't wild. Beyond the mask, beyond the polished story, beyond the basement and the shadow, there is a deeper center in you. Not the personality you perform, not the role you defend, not the version of you shaped by fear, praise, rejection, or survival. Something wider, quieter, more whole, a self that doesn't need to lie in order to exist. Most people spend their lives trying to perfect the mask. Better image, better confidence, better status, better personality, better performance. And sure, some of that can help. Life does require a face. You can't walk through the world completely raw all the time. But a mask should serve the soul, not replace it. When your identity becomes your master, you start defending a character instead of discovering your being. Wholeness doesn't come from becoming only light. That's a childish idea, even if it sounds spiritual. Wholeness comes from gathering the scattered pieces of yourself and bringing them home. The soft parts, the strong parts, the feminine and masculine qualities you buried because they didn't fit your image. The tenderness you called weakness, the assertiveness you called aggression, the creativity you dismissed as impractical, the grief you kept turning into productivity. One by one, these exiled parts wait to be remembered. A person who begins to live from this deeper center becomes harder to manipulate, not because they're emotionless, but because they're no longer so desperate to protect a false image. Criticism still stings, but it doesn't destroy them. Praise still feels good, but it doesn't own them. They can admit when they're wrong without feeling erased. They can change direction without calling it failure. They can meet life with more honesty because they're no longer spending all their energy holding together a costume that was never meant to be permanent. The greatest lie you'll ever believe is your identity, because once you believe it completely, you stop searching. You mistake the doorway for the destination. You defend the mask, polish the mask, decorate the mask, compare the mask, and suffer whenever someone threatens the mask. Meanwhile, the deeper self waits beneath all of it, not angry, not rushed, just patiently present, like a flame behind a wall. So begin there, not with some dramatic reinvention, not with another performance disguised as healing. Begin with one honest question. What part of me have I been refusing to see? Ask it gently, but don't ask it weakly. Let the answer come. Let the old identity tremble a little. You were never meant to remain trapped inside the first version of yourself that learned how to survive. You are allowed to become whole. You are allowed to meet the stranger within and realize, slowly, quietly, with a kind of sacred shock, that the stranger was never your enemy. The stranger was you, waiting to be welcomed home.